Welcome all to our Age of Identity Public Sector Forum and our higher education session, Partnering for Campus Success. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We have a great discussion with some great panelists, specifically talking on the challenges for colleges and universities, especially with the impact of what we've all gone through the last year and a half, and how coming together to partner with integrations and technology to continue further success of the students and campuses across the globe. My name is Ben Arencia. I'm the regional manager for higher education here at Okta. I'll be moderating our panel discussion. Joining us today, we have Fred Rocha, CIO and Executive Director at Coast Colleges, one of the districts of the California Community Colleges, and Kuljit Darni, who's Senior Vice President of Partnerships at Ellucian. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion. First, let me start with some introductions. So I'll get going with tell us a bit about yourself and your college and your organization. Fred, I'll start with you.
Certainly. Thank you, Ben. First of all, just a pleasure to be here. Always enjoy having conversations with colleagues about important topics, and certainly this type of partnership and identity management is a critical one for us. As Ben said, I'm Fred Rocha, Chief Information Officer, Executive Director for Coast Colleges. We're located in Costa Mesa, California, a beautiful part of Southern California, one of 116 California community colleges serving over 2.1 million students statewide.
Great, thank you. Ben, very nice to meet you. Fred, very nice to meet you. I'm Kuljit Darni, Senior Vice President of Partnerships at Ellucian. So Ellucian is an international company. We are headquartered in Reston, Virginia, but have presence throughout the globe. Our entire focus is on higher education, providing solutions for student success in higher education. It runs completely through our ethos, as I hope we will discover as we engage in conversation.
Awesome. No, thank you guys, and again, thank you for joining us today in our first public sector forum on the age of identity. To kick things off, I just maybe get from you guys both on kind of your vision for technology and how it impacts your campus and your students, where you see that going, and then we'll dig into kind of focusing more on kind of the modern identity piece and how that's impacting it as well. So I think, Fred, maybe from a holistic standpoint, like your vision and how you see things work from a technology standpoint to your colleges.
Certainly. And I think I'd start off by saying that this past year, 14 months or so, really helped draw a really big spotlight to the amount of services, the amount of technology that we use, some things that maybe were even hidden in the shadows, in the sense that we didn't really think about them being there until suddenly we had to take things that maybe were living on an on-premise environment or living in a particular lab that suddenly had to be turned outward. And I think that's what the experience has taught us, is not only do we need to have a complete sense of inventory of everything that we provide, all the services that we provide, but what are those critical systems that are actually playing that key component in delivering that service. So one of the things I just share in terms of a holistic environment, we have something like 57 pieces of enterprise software. So that means enterprise software being the components that touch all of the business processes that we use within our district. And since education is our business, that really means every tool that is used in order to provide instruction, to provide counseling, to provide any student service or staff service that is utilized within our community. And that's just the big pieces, if you will. That 57 just represents the big number that we realize, not even getting and drilling down into some very specific pieces of software that might live in a particular class or a particular department or division. So our world changed dramatically this past year. And I think having this sort of discussion is really timely, because there's been a lot of lessons that we've learned that I think we're all going to be able to touch upon and draw upon in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if obviously you're not alone in that. We've been, my counterparts and colleagues on our higher education team here at Okta have been hearing a lot of that, especially after the last year and a half, and the changes and the impact of students being off campus. How do they get access to the applications and resources they need to be successful, as well as the faculty and staff, right? Teachers being able to have to evolve and learn how to teach in kind of that new world, and then faculty and staff and your team, right, not being potentially on campus, but then having to figure out, all right, how do we manage and secure this technology, right, so it's available, and then that we can even manage and control it as well. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of challenge, I think, that have come to the forefront in the last 14 months as well. Awesome, thank you. Curious from your perspective, kind of from the Lucian side, and a lot of conversations I know you guys have had as well, kind of what you've heard, and kind of the changes around that also.
Yeah, it's I mean, there is no way to ignore the impact COVID had over the last year and a half. Absolutely none. It shifted the world. So there's a lot of learnings from that, but I'll point to three specific ones. One is very much, as both of you have alluded to, is the shift to cloud. So we saw that impact us because predominantly Lucian has been around a while, 50 years. So we sort of started in the data center and then have shifted our products and services to cloud and to SaaS. And there was a huge demand, not just for us, but every single provider of service to higher education. This was on a number of different fronts. One is absolutely the flexibility that both of you talked about, the applicability of solutions anywhere, anytime. And the other trend that we saw is the retirement in higher education, putting pressure on the management of solutions.
Yeah.
So the shift to a managed service or a SaaS service was hugely appealing. The second piece, not so much in my current world, but my previous world of learning systems, was the explosion of online programs. If you looked at campus funding, it went very much to online teaching and learning and student safety. Absolutely where it should, right? Those are the two arenas that are first and foremost, given what we went through. The third element that I'll just touch on briefly is that of decision making. So big data really hitting big time into higher education to make decisions, informed decisions that are data driven quickly and easily. That one I could talk about for a while, but I won't.
That's a whole nother half-hour conversation, I think, on just that topic.
I think many more conversations to come from this one for sure.
Yeah.
Ben, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump into something that Kuljit shared there, because I think that's an important demarcation for us in higher education, especially within my district, is, if you will, our services that we're working with, those services being able to reside in the cloud are now table stakes. I mean, we expect that any of our solution providers have to have their presence in the cloud. I think, spot on. Lucian's a critical partner for Coast, and as such, that was one of the jumps we made a little over 2 years ago, was to go to the Lucian managed services in the AWS cloud, for just some of the benefits that we saw as a result of what happened with COVID. We needed to be able to know that we would have access whenever we needed it, wherever we needed it. Right. And I think that's really what is come out from all of this. And I think that's one of the big lessons learned. And I will be surprised if any colleague really looks to solutions that have to be installed on-prem any longer. I don't know how many of us will have on-prem data centers, to be quite honest, for other than small services.
Yeah. No, no, for sure. And I guess with that said, Fred, I mean, what challenges do you foresee or that you're currently facing that you and your team have in order to provide that new and best experience for students and staff, right? As they have the right access to the right technologies and the right resources.
Well, I think the first thing we had to do is sort of like take that bucket of applications and dump it on the desk and sort through everything that we had. What we quickly found out is we had far too many pieces to solutions. We didn't have, if you will, a total perspective of, we knew what we were trying to achieve, but we didn't necessarily have what I would call the comprehensive solution. Or if we did have what at least was a comprehensive way in dealing with it, it had far too many pieces that had bespoke connectors that if we did one upgrade here, suddenly something broke over there. And that became the challenge because as you alluded to, we, at first, like everybody else, we had to send everybody home.
Yeah.
So how do you work on things when you can't necessarily touch and feel them if they were still residing within your physical environment? So working to eliminate that, working to simplify what it was that we utilized, and then to leverage the heck out of every single tool we had. So it couldn't be a one-trick pony anymore. It had to be something that could be utilized in a much broader way. And that was a modern tool. I didn't want to have to be recruiting somebody to use an ancient and archaic programming language in order to keep it running. I want to use modern tools, modern platforms, so that as I look to have team members join us, I am actually offering them industry quality tools, things that are out there that are being used throughout the industry, throughout higher ed, throughout IT, so that we can actually do that level of recruiting that actually will match the level of service we want to provide.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. And then specifically how your thoughts around how, when you look at it from a modern identity, and then you alluded to as far as leveraging the modern cloud services from Ellucian as well, right? How does that impact kind of your vision and your, your thoughts of execution now that, potentially coming back to campus or living in a hybrid world moving forward?
Well, I think there's a few things. It doesn't take much to look in the news at how many, say, ransomware attacks and cyber events there are. And we can look at that from, there's multiple ways in which we can limit the surface attack vector that we present to cyber bad actors. But part of that is certainly taking a look at what it takes to maintain our environment, and then to maintain the security posture around that environment. One of the things I look at is with our ERP, our student information system, we have a wealth of information about the roles that everybody has within our organization, whether they're a student and the classes they're taking and the access they need, whether they're an instructor, whether they're a staff member. We know that we have great data there that can help us build a role-based security model and actually leverage that zero trust framework to be able to say, hey, depending on your role, you might have to go through a few extra hurdles in order to get to something, only because the role you have, the sensitivity of the data, and what could be done and what harm could be done if that was misappropriated. So for us, taking a look at how we can very quickly and easily build that connection between any of the applications that our students need to use, our staff needs to use, we want to have somebody who is able to help us really do that quickly, efficiently, and securely. We want to make sure that our partners, our student information system partner, is a critical part of that discussion, because they are the people that understand their system better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So if we can work together and bring all of our partners together, it just gives us the best opportunity to not only achieve what needs to be achieved quickly, but to do it in a sustainable manner where it isn't something that's, hey, I got it working today and wait, there was an upgrade and now suddenly it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We want everybody swimming in the same direction, or the other analogy, we're all in the rowboat, we got to be pulling the rows in the same manner if we're going to make forward progress. So I think that's what's really critical. And by working with industry partners, it really does help us drive that forward, because they are the only people who, quite frankly, have the resources to make those sort of investments and the changes that are necessary.
Yep.
So,
No, exactly. Don't get caught in the status quo. Sorry, Kluge, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Fred, you have summarized the presentation I do with the partners. Since I run partnerships, that is exactly it. Is the value of a really elegant platform for integration. Because one thing we have seen in every single institution that we are in, or even the ones we are not in, is best of breed is definitely back, rather than huge monolithic systems. Therefore, the integration framework, the security layer, the flexibility, the scale needs to be just first class. Otherwise, you're off the table. The other bit I'd mention, since this is an Okta forum, is the availability of choice, right? So inevitably, it's funny because, Lucien has identity solutions that are ours, but if we stop there, I know it would be game over, because Okta solution is so prevalent, and rightfully so. So, the ability to partner with competing solutions and allow for that coherence of vendors, so the customer is not the one going, how does this thing work?
Right.
I think is super, super important. The SIS holds the data, is the system of record, seamlessly provisioning that in Okta's identity solutions, allowing then Okta workflow and other elements to come into play. That's an elegant solution, rather than saying, no, we don't play, right? So I think those days are long gone, or at least if vendors want to be relevant, those days are long gone.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. And I thank you for that, Kluge. We take a lot of pride in our ability to have those integrations and integrate with our partners such as yourself. But I do think that's the key part to the best of breed, right? I think best of breed before, which is like, all right, best here, best here, best here. But to have that integrated across those systems weren't there. But now that we have these integrations and partnerships, we can now better solve that holistic challenges, right, that you were talking about, Fred, that go across those different systems, and then even help automate that, right? Make it easier to manage and make it easier to secure, which gets down to kind of then back to the user experience, right? And making it easier for them to not have to get frustrated about figuring out, how do I get where? Why is my information not there? Now I have to go figure this out versus, I have to go, do my schoolwork or go teach my class.
Right. Well, and I think we're all trying to get from good to great, right? I mean, we're all trying to figure out how we make that leap. And that's the point of best of breed. And you hit upon the problem that plagued us forever in that model. There's two components to that have to work. Not only does it have to be the best product at what it does, it has to be the best at leveraging what it does and integrating with everybody else. Otherwise, it's not best of breed. Then it's just a bespoke tool that lives on its own, and nobody can be an island anymore. If we've learned anything, it's that we are all integrated in one way or another. And the only way we're all going to be successful is if we truly all integrate and help each other be successful.
Yeah. That sums it up really nicely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Sums it up great. And I guess from an impact perspective, Fred, how have you kind of seen some of that shift with the users, right? The student experience?
Well, that's the expectation students bring to our door. So if we think about, I think of the idea that the Amazon has had the impact on us all, where there's an expectation that things just work, that they should be easy, that I can get the self-service that I need, and that's really where we have been striving to get to, is to make sure that we have our students, our staff, and if you will, beyond coast, that it should be this way within our state system, that it should be a case in which a student of our system is able to use that single identity and go to wherever they're acquiring services, whether that's instruction, whether it's counseling, whether it's workforce training. It shouldn't matter. It should be that single identity that they're able to take with them. And the same thing for our instructors. We have adjunct that teach at multiple institutions in this state. We live in an online environment where instruction is taking place in many different parts of the world. Why would we simply not want to leverage that single identity? Again, I come back from the security perspective, then that way I can have really strong passphrasing. I can have multi-factor authentication. I can have something that is really easy for the user to be able to consume, to see the value, and then to be able to have that quality experience as they go from one system to the next, from one district to the next, from one college to the next. And that's really what drives this for me, is making sure that what we are doing is making education as accessible as possible for everybody who wants to avail themselves to that service. The way we do that is we leverage identity, we leverage our services, and we leverage our partners to help us deliver that.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I appreciate that, Fred. I think again, that kind of the key to be able to help with that holistic solution with the different partners that you have. And Claudia, I'd like your take as far as, from your perspective on with the partnership that we have, how you see Lucien and Okta coming together to help with solving these challenges.
So this hits home very much, because this is exactly where we are headed as a company. So there are a couple of pieces there that I can speak to. One is the unification of the user experience that is persona based and relevant to that individual, regardless of whether they have one role or multiple, right? So we have done a lot of investment in this arena for modernization, but also relevance across our product portfolio, because it needs to go beyond the single company. So this is our approach now, is open SaaS solutions. And specifically the bit that I'm talking about is experience, may as well call it what it is. And not only allow our products to surface in it, but anybody else's as well through the integration layer. So if it's Okta solutions, the UI, so not just the integration in the back that we talked to, but also the UI can surface so that the individual doesn't need to bounce around. And Fred spoke to that earlier. But then for security, the scalability, federation, elegance of multi-system approach needs to be there. And that's, again, where a cohesive integration platform really comes into its own. But relying upon open standards to do that. The other thing that you cannot hold up is a locked-in, I have the solution. Which is why we admire Okta so much, is the ability to leverage open standards in order to do integration, which also means then those can be independently verified, validated, and trusted.
Yep.
Right? The magic box thing has to go away.
No, and I think it helps with, streamlining the processes. And I think there's the technology aspect of it, but I think you alluded to it earlier too, Fred, as far as the business process aspect of it as well, right? Mm-hmm. So, those are the types of things to be figured out, but then now you can leverage a partnership that we have together to be able to help streamline that, and then even further, maybe potentially automate some of those things as well that are done in that zero trust framework and secure manner, so that that access to whatever system that they're going to leverage they're doing it seamlessly, but then also securely with the right information that's coming on the back end.
Oh, agreed. I mean, and the other thing is too, is that nobody in our system, meaning within the co-system, is a monolithic figure. I mean, here I am, I'm the CIO, but I'm a student at one of our community colleges because education never ends, right? You're always looking for being able to do a new training, a new class. I'm also a donor because we contribute to scholarship funds. So just within those three roles, you certainly don't want me to be a student in a class with all the rights of a CIO. That's not appropriate.
Right.
And as a donor, you certainly don't want me to have the rights of a student within a particular, a group or subset of activities. So having those tools becomes really critically important to be able to say, let's take a look at what is asked of this person right now. What is it that they're trying to perform? And let's give them then the rights and the privileges and the access that they need dependent upon that role. So having, again, that level of integration, that partnership is critical for making that easier to maintain. Because I'll tell you right now, it's a challenge using some of the old existing tools that are out there. We all lived in, and I won't speak of any other solution providers, but let's just say that, it doesn't serve us well to have all these silos in which pieces of the puzzle are contained, and then have to figure out how to get all those silos to connect and use them properly. We're past that. We're over that. We can't function that way. That's not 21st century thinking.
Yeah, I know it's hard, especially if it's manual processes and customizations, right? So then it's kind of just layering custom on top of custom. And then if you have to unwind that for some reason, that's even more challenging.
Agreed.
So I know we're coming up close to our time. I want to be respectful, of course, for your time, everybody else's time, and to our agenda for the public sector forum. But last question for you guys is just, and Kuljit, I'll come to you first as far as reflect on kind of things as a technology leader, lessons that you have learned, and what advice that you would give to folks looking at like this type of similar project, and then things in general.
That one is a tough one because there are so many variables. For me, it always comes back to the basics, which is to have as clear an understanding of where you are headed. Because everything we have talked about requires really methodical planning. It requires focus, requires everyone to be aligned as to where you're headed. So that's beyond technology. I think technology is the simpler piece. It's getting people sort of marching in the right order is the hard one. And then the other element is trusting your peers to make the decisions that they are best suited for. The CIO has the right set of individuals or the right hooks into industry to come up with the solutions and shortlist them, test them out, and get agreement and move on. The registrar similarly on the set of student processes, et cetera, because the campus itself is such a just complex set of interactions, right? But I think at the end of the day, it is absolutely the focus on where you're headed and putting the right set of resources, the right set of time and material to that purpose.
Yeah. I think you got to have that plan, not only obviously not for reacting to what we've all gone through, to just to have the short term, but knowing that long term and where you're going to, where you want to strive for as well, and rowing there, as Fred said, in the same direction. And then Fred, I'll give the last word to you from your perspective, lessons learned and advice that you'd give as well.
I think the phrase I'd use is something that we've all had to do, and that's we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Our world is changing much faster. There are changes that impact us that may take a decision that we made a year ago, 2 years ago, and suddenly turn it on its ear, and we have to revisit it. And that is not, I work in an industry which takes a slow and steady, pace at which we make decisions. We lost some of the luxury of that this past year, but it taught us to be more nimble, to be more agile, and to figure out who we need to really bring into those critical decision-making steps so that we reduce the number of times that we fail, but when we do fail, we learn a lesson from it. And we move forward. And that's really, in education, the word failure has a pretty bad stigma, right? Because we think about failing classes, but in IT, failure really is just what leads us to our next success. It's trying something, because if we never try, then we'll never fail. We just have to get comfortable with the idea that sometimes we want to be, more often than not, we want to be right. But when we're not, let's not worry about the fact that we had a misstep, that we had a miscalculation, or we had something that didn't go correctly. Instead, let's figure out what that taught us so that we are more successful going forward. I think as long as we can keep that mindset, as long as we can remember that discomfort is actually going to drive positive change, the better off we're going to be, all of us, because then we can all help each other with that level of discomfort we have, get to those goals that we're all trying to achieve.
Yeah, no, it's beautifully said, and I think a great way to close up our session. I appreciate that, and I want to thank Fred. Thank you for joining us. Kulji, thank you for joining us as well. I know this concludes our session, but I know for us it'll be a lot more continued and in-depth discussions. I know with the three of us, and I know hopefully with many of you out there as well. Want to definitely, again, appreciate and thank you all again for taking the time to join us. Wish everybody a great day, and please stay well out there. Thank you.